This is the Ghana Innovation Journal Innovator Spotlight Series. We have been exploring Ghana's fintech journey, and we've had conversations with very interesting individuals who have been part of Ghana's journey from the very start. I'm talking early 90s all the way to 2024. Today, my guest is nicknamed Mr. Stairs. He's an innovator. He's been in the fintech space for a long time. He's contributed to new and innovative technologies, and he's currently the CEO of Heritors Labs. He needs no other introduction, but if you haven't met him, let's welcome DerryDean Dadzie. DerryDean, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I heard a drum roll. Is it with the tapping of your fingers?
There was a drum roll. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a very nice one.
And DerryDean, I know you've had a busy week, but thank you.
Yeah. And
So just before this live session, we're sharing some very interesting approaches to your way of life, etc. For those who haven't met you, can you just give a quick introduction, who you are and what you're currently doing?
Right. So who am I? That's a question that I'm still always answering. But one of the things I know about myself is that I like to solve complex problems. I also like to see um, the world evolve, especially the world around me, right? Evolve in tandem with how the world outside me is growing. Especially, I'm talking about the world around me is Ghana,
Mm,
Africa, and then the world outside me, I see it as the West and other developed countries. I want to see. So one of my key passions in terms of what I represent is
mm,
how do I every day contribute to making the world around me better in a way that
mm,
will not be so far removed from how the advanced
mm,
countries actually do their thing. So that's why I am in the space I'm in. That's what I'm doing, what I'm doing. So that is who I am. I'm a person of questions, always trying to answer questions and asking questions around how to make things better, how to make the society around us
yeah.
better. So one area that I
Mm-hmm.
found myself in at some point was in the fintech space. The question we have to ask,
Right.
I'm always trying to answer is how do we move the financial technology ecosystem in Ghana? And then that led to my journey
Mm,
in that part. Then another,
mm-hmm.
who am I? Okay, so now I'm on the path of how do I move the journey around innovation? How do I get
Mm,
innovations that are coming from this part of the world? Um, how do you call it? Make it more commercial. How do I move innovation from this part of our world? I mean, from
mm,
Ghana, from the laboratories in Ghana to the
mm,
market in Ghana, and then also to the market outside Ghana. So
mm,
that is what I represent. I represent solving problems. I don't know about passion yet, but I love what I do.
mm.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, yeah. So there's a bit about myself.
Thank you. And I realized you mentioned three main things that piqued my interest whilst you were talking. So number one, you like to making the world that you find yourself a better place. And
Yeah.
because of that, it led you to finding how to move the financial ecosystem in Ghana to
Yeah.
the global standard that you notice. And then finally, you are leveraging innovation and making sure that in Ghana we are able to innovate and make it commercially viable. I love that.
Yeah.
Because we are
Yeah.
talking about the fintech journey, can you quickly walk us through your journey in the fintech space? How have you been, in your own words, been able to move Ghana in the fintech journey?
Right. So my fintech journey started some time back in 2007 when, together with a group of friends, we
Mm,
started a company called Dreamable, and then came out with a product
mm,
called iWallet, and then iWallet evolved into Slide
mm,
Pay, and then now Slide Pay has evolved into
mm.
Kari, right? So that is the three stages of
Okay.
my fintech journey. And at the time, a bit of background. At the time, there were a lot of unanswered questions around how do you enable mobile payment, especially for e-commerce. At the time as well, even when you had Visa cards, and you had Visa cards were not that popular. There were a few banks that were issuing those visas.
Right.
Online commerce was not
Mm.
that popular. Different companies have tried, and from a historical point of view, there have been different groups of people, including sub tribes, Hem um, Chinrese, um,
Yeah.
even McDavid's or Busy Internet at the time, all trying to
Yes.
resolve that e-commerce gap. So before some
Mm-hmm.
of the iWallet and other things trying to solve the e-commerce gap, there was Shop Africa 53 that Herman Chinresi tried to bring, and he was using scratch cards, right? Um, then there was Zuba
Right.
Shop for e-commerce. There were different online shops, but there was still a gap around payment, right? That was a big gap. Who could
Mm.
put together all the payment rails for that to happen? Back in the day, PayPal was a trend, but yes, and up till now, you still cannot have a PayPal account. Um, Back in
That's
the
correct.
day, which I'm very happy about because
Mm.
then we get to use um, our own product. In the past, it's a big deal,
Yeah.
but now it's not. Right. So that is some historical background. So we came in to do um, iWallet, and we also started with scratch cards. We printed scratch cards because at the time as
Oh, you
well,
did.
yeah, we did.
Mm.
At the time as well, there was no strong. There were regulations, but they were not that deep in terms of they were too strict
Mm.
and they were not too organized, if I may put it that way.
Mm.
So one of the regulations was if you want to do something like payment, you need to go and get 6 banks who are willing to work with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, for me, that for a startup, for a young startup, that's going to be tough. So companies like
Yeah.
eTransact came in that space, and they were able to get all the Nigerian banks to be on their side. So eTransact
Right.
started providing that kind of service, right? And this
Mm.
from a historical context. And at the time, we're quite young. We had just finished Access University,
Yeah.
and then we started the iWallet journey. Then along the
Okay.
way, Airtel Zane had come, and
Mm. I
we
remember that.
approached Zane, and then through a conversation, we approached Zane, and then they gave us access to be able to move money from Airtel Money at the time
Okay.
um,
Okay. Okay.
to make payments online. So
Mm.
yeah, but that didn't catch on. Why? Because our model was more to pay online. Now you want to pay online, but the
Right.
market online wasn't that big, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the transactions were not that flowing, and then we started doing we went into partnership with a bank in Ghana at the time
Mm.
called Zenith. It doesn't really a
Mm.
partnership. We just use their payment rail.
Okay.
We just use that payment rail. How do you call it? To process, how do you call it? To process credit card payment online, right? Just a minute.
Mm. Sure. So if you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with DerryDean Dadzie. He is the CEO of Heritors Labs, but most of you may know him as one of the early founders of Dream Oval. And Dream Oval evolved to becoming Slide Pay and now Carry, right? Um, Before the show, I was talking to Derry D, and he mentioned how he's answered the dream mobile question a couple of times. So today we are going to enter more of what he's doing currently and how he's been able to influence the fintech and innovation space here in Ghana. So Derry D,
Right.
over
Sorry.
to
Yeah, sorry about that. I was distracted by a call.
that's fine.
Yes, I had to cancel the call on my PC where I'm doing the work. I'm doing the interview
Okay.
on. So yeah, went into a partnership with a bank. First
Yeah.
partnership with a bank at the time, not a partnership. Like I said, we used their rail, but still it
Hmm.
was e-commerce oriented. So no
Okay.
action. There was not much going on. We actually got defrauded on that side. So that was our first hit of
Whoa.
fraud, right? Over 300,000 hit
Whoa.
at the time. Yeah, that was like 2009,
Whoa.
2010 at the time. I'm just spitting out some beans out there for you guys to see
Yes.
the
Yes.
struggles
Yes.
of an entrepreneur, right?
Of course.
But there was a eureka moment at some point. One time, I figured that wait, what about if we could move money from card and
Okay.
then get people to send money to a mobile money number at the time. There was no GIP, nothing like that.
Wow.
So we got a relationship with another bank that enabled us move money from people's bank account
Uh-huh.
through their Visa. Well, some of the APIs from Visa, there's
Yeah.
an API like that enables you move money. Between
Okay.
Visa Mastercard, yeah. So what we did was that we built a form, and then
Okay.
we didn't like that product was built in like 3 days. We built a form, and then the whole business promise was we are if you send money, you're going to get your money will go to the Momo number in 30
Okay.
minutes. And that was a big value proposition.
That was big. That was
Yeah,
big.
yeah. Yeah, that was a big value proposition. And we tried that. We didn't a week. We're making a lot of we're processing over 300,000 transactions in 300,000 cities in transaction at the time.
In a week.
Yeah, so that was a huge difference, right? So that started a journey of
Whoa.
peer-to-peer transfer from
Yes.
because there was no GIP, didn't have all those automatic MTN APIs, those things were not there like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that started that journey. I realized that, oh, okay, peer-to-peer money transfer was a real deal and not e-commerce payment,
Yeah.
right? But now you can
Mm.
see e-commerce payment in different forms, right? Now you
Right.
can buy on Jumia, you can buy on all these other e-commerce platforms, and payments have become so easy. If I say so easy, we have many
Yeah.
payment processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a journey on the payment side. Then
Mm.
we entered into a partnership with Stanbic Bank as well. So that became the first fintech bank partnership where we evolved at the time. The product was called iWallet, and we evolved iWallet to a product called Slide Pay.
Yeah.
So that's how Slide Pay came to
Yeah.
be. So with our relationship with Stanbic brought about Slide Pay, and
Mm.
then the journey continued. At some point in 2018, I left Dreamobile and then went took a break from entrepreneurship, and then came
Mm.
back in late 2018 or 19 to work to be the first CEO of the Chamber of Technology. So that's where I delved more into the policy space and the advocacy space, trying to work
Mm-hmm.
with key stakeholders and government to see
Mm-hmm.
how we can have good policies that will transform the technology ecosystem in Ghana. So that's where that journey started, right? And that
Mm.
is where on the fintech side, I help push policies like the current fintech PSP guideline, the payment systems guidelines that has been pushed, that is being used, that is used to run the payment systems providers ecosystem. So the
Oh,
EMI,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So those are direct things that I worked on as a
Yes.
CEO of the Chamber of Technology that brought about those guidelines. So that is my fintech journey told in about 5 or 7 minutes. Yeah.
I love it. And thank you for the crash course. I personally didn't know the level of influence you had at the Chamber of Technology. And it's refreshing
Right.
to hear, right? Especially you coming from a startup background and now being in policy. How
Right.
easy, how easy or how challenging was that to influence policies, especially to favor innovation and startups?
I think that because I was already in the ecosystem, I could appreciate
Mhm.
the challenges, the dynamics, the opportunities,
Mm.
um, all the key nuances of the ecosystem from a player's point of view. Then
Right.
being out and wearing a new hat as a chamber lead or a chamber
Mm-hmm.
head, now the mental or my natural orientation now goes into supporting everybody, right? At first,
Mm.
working as a Dreamover CEO, I was
Mm-hmm.
competing with everybody because I wanted to gain market share. Now, working as a chamber
Mm.
lead, I'm no more competing. I'm
Mm.
trying to create an enabling ecosystem for all the businesses to thrive and grow and succeed.
Right.
And in doing that, you need to work with
Mm-hmm.
government. In doing that, you need to work with governmental agencies. In doing that, you want to work with other stakeholders, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, the transition was a smooth one for me because naturally
Okay.
I am oriented towards solving problems. I'm oriented towards
Mm,
creating ecosystem, creating nothing or creating something from nothing, right? Trying to
mm,
activate and stimulate better economic dynamics and better how do you call it, economies within an ecosystem. So
mm,
that is my natural inclination. I also
mm,
like doing policies or writing out regulations. And as a businessman, I was writing out business operational models. I was always writing out things, how we want to
mm,
run our business. You're writing out different customer relationship strategies. You're working, writing out
yeah.
different things, or
Mm-hmm.
thinking through how you can provide better services to your client, right? So this requires a lot
Mm,
of empathy, it requires a lot of drafting, it requires a lot of engagement. So that
mm,
came naturally to me, transitioning to a chamber head that's more an advocacy role. Then I'm more
yeah.
able to like naturally engage, and I know how to build relationships. So working with all
Mm-hmm.
these politicians and working with all these agency heads, the people at the finance ministry, or people at the Bank of Ghana, or people at with the development partners, um, was not for me. I didn't see it as that challenging. Of course,
Yeah.
it's nuanced, but I think that I had, by the grace of God and by working with different other people for several years, I could master the needed internal resources and courage with the
Mm,
support of the people around me to engage and
yeah.
make things happen. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that you were able to leverage, first of all, what you had, and then also things that came naturally to you. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, so this is going to be a controversial question. Were there any gaps or opportunities you noticed as well when you were at that stage to be able to leverage for what you are doing now?
In terms of gaps and opportunity, in terms of what like my personal
So a
gap,
classic,
ecosystem. Yeah.
yes, a classic one is I don't think there was interoperability by the time you were in that office. Did you notice it and
Right.
say, "Oh, this is going to happen soon? So let's be able to see how we can help people do cross-border payments, etc." Because
Right.
as an entrepreneur, you definitely want to be able to leverage. Like, problems are almost like our businesses, right? We see a problem and then we say, let's leverage on this. So were there any you noticed, even from the government side, that you knew you could help solve?
I think that during my time as a chamber CEO, the market was evolving, but there were still no regulatory guidelines to determine or to orchestrate and organize a market, right? So there were
Mm,
still fintechs were able to work with like the payment, the mobile money providers, for example, because they are the biggest movers when it comes to
mm,
transactions, right? Also, there was still no clear guidelines on how you work with the banks, right? So those were gaps, right? So
yes.
what me being at the helm at the time, what came to me was having to work with the Bank of Ghana and the Chamber to harmonize the
Mm,
regulatory environment, to
okay.
present viable alternatives to any proposals that may be inimical or that may not be optimal to the ecosystem, right? So for example, we come
Mm,
in and then so at first you want to set up a fintech, you're not sure where you have to go, you're not
right.
sure which guidelines you are supposed to follow. So you go
Mm,
in, bullish or whichever approach that you take, and
mm,
you may not find it easy even to find partners. Right now, in a
right.
regulated environment, if you are licensed, nothing stops you from having access to some of the APIs or having access to, let's say, GIP, or having access to a Momo provider to be able to
Okay.
provide your fintech services. So far as you meet the licensing
Mhm.
requirement, nobody can stop you. It's no more about who you know, but it's more
Right.
about what you have, because it's a regulated
Okay.
environment. As far as you have the license, then you should be able to do um, the things that you're supposed to do with the partners or the ecosystem enablers that you're supposed to work with, right? By default,
Mm,
that wasn't there, right? Initially, there was no clear cut what was permissible. So, who can do what? That's one question that
exactly.
nobody really know we knew. So, in terms of taxonomy, um, the ecosystem was not well structured. We knew by
Okay.
dint view that okay, this guy is so big, he has access to a telco, he's the key
Right.
Momo. Okay, it's Momo, but what are they? Are they electronic money issuers? Are they payment service providers?
Mm,
Are they schemes? What are they? What the regulation then comes to do is it comes to define and identify, segment, and fully architect the ecosystem
okay.
in a way that brings about clarity of purpose for persons and businesses that wants to um, partake in that economy. So if you want to be a fintech, at what level
Mm,
do you want to play? Because the regulation would have laid out the regulation would have laid out the how do you call it the permissible
the framework
activities,
step.
the
Yeah. Okay.
requirement, the financial requirement, everything else, right? So that's what
Mm,
regulatory environment do. Regulatory environments provide you a more harmonized, organized, orchestrated, well architected ecosystem to play in. And what it does is
mm,
that it brings a lot of how do you call it interest from investors because now the investors are
mm,
assured that you are playing in an environment that is regarded
mm.
as part of an economy and that has its own rules. It makes it easy for investors to
Right.
come in. So that is how, if
Mm,
prior to me being a chamber head, that wasn't
okay.
necessarily the case. It was like how you can play without necessarily any
Mm,
guidance. During my tenure, it is
yeah.
guidance, and now people have a very meaningful path to play. It's up to them to determine where they want to play based on
Right.
the requirement that the regulator has set at this time, and this time around, the Bank of Ghana has said. So during my time, for example,
Mm-hmm.
before when we were negotiating the whole regulatory framework, there was
Mm-hmm.
the initial ask was more on initial capital requirement, right? And how do you call it? The minimum capital requirement, where to play you have
Yes.
to some minimum amount of money to play.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But during my time, we were able to negotiate down those capital requirements and then work with the Bank of Ghana to come up with minimum, have add new requirement that
Right.
would be a very good compromise for the Bank
Okay.
of Ghana not requiring us to put up too much money to be a fintech, right?
Okay.
So we put
Okay.
up something like the minimum infrastructure requirement, and then self said, okay, we should even get ISO 27001
Mm,
as part of the infrastructure requirement. We put up
okay.
minimum governance requirement and say, look, every person wants to play in this space should have a physical office, should have board of governance, should have certain minimum governance, certain minimum institutional
Mm,
frameworks to be able to guide
yeah.
the operations of such a fintech. So through these regulatory guidelines or regulatory framework, we now have a well positioned at a certain level
Mm,
ecosystem
yeah.
or operational environment that
Mm,
now if you want to play, you can go in. Then investors now will say that, okay, now fintech or
yeah.
payment service provision is a whole new business model in Ghana.
Mm,
And I want to invest in the PSP, I want to invest in EMI, just as how the banks have become banks, just as how insurance companies have become insurance companies. Now fintechs have
right.
become the thing. They are
Now,
employing a lot of
fintechs are.
people. Some fintechs are employing
Mm,
200 people, closer to some of the banks. So that's how I've been in the ecosystem and some of the things I've been doing in the fintech space.
what I'm hearing, DerryDean, is you've really contributed, like from a startup perspective and also from a regulatory perspective, how the different players can play, especially for fintechs. And
Right,
I just have to
right.
ask one more question. Do you think that we have a level playing field now when it comes to approvals from BOG, regulatory bodies, etc.? Some of the conversations have been that there are hegemonies or people, like guarding the space. But from what you're saying now, it's more of show that you have these requirements, show that you have a board of directors, show that you can do X, Y, Z, and we'll give you the opportunity. So, can you answer
Yeah,
this question for me before we move on?
yeah. I think the playing field is leveled at the regulatory level, at the regulatory stage, because their requirement. If you meet the requirement, nothing can stop you.
Right.
Is quite algorithmic in that regard. That
Okay.
meet A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Just like writing the code and saying if this
Right.
behave this, if this
Right.
behave this way. For me, I think that's the algorithm.
Okay.
Um, so I don't see the issue there. If the
Mm.
issue is when you now get your license, now getting new business and playing is tough. Of course, that
Yeah,
is something that
that's
can be looked
business.
at, but
That's
that is
actually.
how business is. There's something
Mm-hmm.
called first mover advantage. Those who always come into the ecosystem first may have they like for example the company Dreamable at the time had worked
Yeah.
from 2007 to like
Mm.
2019 when the fintech regulations came to be, or 2020. So you can imagine a company that has worked all these years in one space when it wasn't even regulated, and now there's regulation.
Right.
They will possess some advantage
Of
compared to a
course.
new business, a new startup that's coming up. Unless the startup is coming up with strong experience, good money, probably experience from another
It has some
country,
good
then of
board
course,
members. Yeah.
yeah. So from a regulatory point of view, I think that the challenge may be the money, right? Because any
Okay.
fintech who wants to play is 2 million cities, and then if you don't want to play at the PSP level, the PSP enhanced level, you have to pay like 800
Mm-hmm.
cities or so, 800,000 cities or so to play at level two. That's the PSP media. And then if you want to play at the PSP standard, you don't have to pay anything, but all have permissible
Mm.
activities. So it really depends on what you want to do.
Mm.
It depends, and what you want to do
Okay.
and where you want to play determines how much you cough up and what the minimum infrastructure requirements are and what the minimum governance
Mm.
requirement is.
Mm. So there you have it. Like, okay, DerryDean says that it's an algorithm, meets the algorithm specifications, and you have a level playing field. Of course, for those who have been in the space, they have another advantage of knowing how the space works and the nuances thereof. DerryDean, thank you so much for your time. It's crazy how fast 30 minutes has gone. I was going to ask you a lot of questions about Heritors. So let's take the last 3 minutes. Let's hear of the future. We've heard of your influence in the past. What's going on with you now? What's happening now and for the future? What's Heritors
Um,
Labs up to?
so Heritors Labs, we are also an innovation firm. We
Mm.
are heavily involved in innovation and research commercialization, um,
Okay.
working towards moving Africa's research from the labs and the shelves to
Okay.
the market. So, how do you
Oh,
move research from the labs to the market? And we are
okay.
about innovation markets and value chains. So, building innovation markets and value chains, conducting a lot of research in those spaces, bringing out technologies that will
Mm.
enhance the movement of research from labs to market. So that's one aspect of what we are doing.
Mm.
And then we are also working a lot of
Mm.
writing and working with different stakeholders, including government, to come up with policies and guidelines and different protocols, strategies to help the innovation economy in Ghana and beyond. Right, and then we also
Mm.
build apps. We build platforms.
Okay.
Yes, and we have some products in the market like Audible, which is an e-commerce platform. So still embarking on
Back to
solving
e-commerce,
problems,
yeah.
yeah, solving problems. There's a problem in how we commercialize our innovation. The question is,
Yeah.
what is Ghana's strategy towards like deep science? How we
Mm.
What are we doing? Different countries in the West are doing so many great things. What about us? Why are we not doing
Mm-hmm.
it?
Right.
Should we always do bread and butter, or we need to start thinking beyond and be at the forefront, rubbing shoulders with some of the top countries when it comes to science, technology, innovation, and research? And these are the things that we are very passionate about, and we are doing that in so many ways. One of the things that we are doing is that in the next couple of months, we are setting up a place of capacity building, an innovation
Mm.
hub that'll be focused on training and building the capacity of different people.
Mm.
We are setting up the Africa Deep Science and Future Innovation Center. So these are things that we are working on, and some of them I'm just saying this for the first time. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to those who are listening and anybody who wants to collaborate or work with my company or with me on science and innovation related activities or digital transformation activities. I'm happy to work with them to see how we can use those tools and the big ideas that we have to transform Ghana's economy and Africa's economy at large. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, DerryDean. I'm telling you, this has been one of the fastest 30 minutes conversations ever. And thank you for spending your time with us. If you joined
Right.
in the conversation, I was having a conversation with DerryDean Dadzie. He started Dreamover back in the day. He's currently the CEO of Heritors Labs. And I love how he addresses himself. He says, call him Mr. Stairs. He's an innovator. He's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. And today he's been sharing Ghana's fintech journey with us on the Ghana Innovation Journal's Innovator Spotlight. And he was gracious enough to join at last minute's notice. So another round of applause and drum roll for DerryDean. DerryDean, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow DerryDean, you can follow him on all social handles. He's DerryDean Dadzie. But on Twitter, he's Legend DerryDean, and at Heritors Labs as well on Twitter. DerryDean, thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you back in Ghana.
All right. Yes. See you soon. Yeah.
All righty.
Okay.
Cheers.
All right. Cheers.